Panel. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hello.
Yay!
Welcome to the whitewashing panel. I am super excited and super nervous because it's been a long time since I've done a panel for a convention. I mean, we've all been in the house, cooped up, and I'm excited. And just as a quick disclaimer, I am sick. So you might hear us uh just a little hoarseness, something like that.
Love it.
Stay with us, okay? Because we are quarantined in our house. We're good to go. We're gonna keep you guys straight. All
We got you.
right.
We got you.
Welcome again to our whitewashing panel. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm so happy to be a part of HBC UConn here with my fellow panelists. And I'm going to go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves, starting with Silverheart. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I am Silverheart Cosplay. I'm a cosplayer down in North Carolina, and this is my first time participating in HBC UConn. So I'm very excited to be here. And just a little bit about me. I've been cosplaying since about 2018. Here's some of my armor stuff I've built before. And I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you. And now, Samira, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Hey, I'm Samira. I also go by Sam. I don't do cosplay, but I do. I have an Instagram account, Sam the Psyche. I'm a licensed therapist, and so I like to talk about, things like whitewashing. Racial identity is actually something that led me to the counseling field. So social justice, social change, those are a bit of a specialty of mine. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, my name is Jerome, and everybody calls me JJ. J Jones, J Jones the Flair, J Sauce the Boss. It goes on and on. I do quite a few things. I play basketball. I love everything nerdy. As you can see, I got the Dragon Ball Z hoodie on right now. I'm a guitar player. I shred. I do all that kind of stuff. And I'm just all over the board. So whitewashing really matters to me because I'm in so many genres. I like to see my people and everybody represented in it. So this is a real good topic, and I'm really happy to be here today.
And hello again. My name is Charlie Rocket. I have been cosplaying for almost 7 years now. Don't tell anyone. Uh, and within that time, I've created a little over 200 costumes, which is quite exhausting. But I prefer to use my platform mainly to speak for people who don't really have a voice. I love doing panels, and I have a ton of panels that I bring to conventions like this because we don't see them often enough. And so I am super happy to bring this whitewashing panel to HBC
Can
UConn.
I mention one thing? I
Yes.
forgot to say I've been cosplaying 2 years. My first year I did numbers at H. No, I didn't do HBCU con. That's what I wanted to do. But here I am now. Look at me now. I did Blur God, all these other cons. And then my second year, COVID happened. So my rookie year was fire, and now I'm in the sophomore slump. So here we are.
So to start the panel off, I'm going to go ahead and explain what whitewashing is, or at least what it means to me, and then I will branch out to you guys. Whitewashing basically is taking a character or a story and retelling it in a way where the person of color is now either white or they have created a narrative where there is a white savior, something like that. So we're taking pieces of culture from Black people and people of color and basically whitewashing it, creating a white narrative. And so for you guys, what does whitewashing mean to you all? And what are some examples of whitewashing? And Sam, you can go ahead and start.
That's a really good question. I feel like everyone kind of has a different experience when it comes to anything, but especially with whitewashing, I feel like different aspects of it can be emphasized for each person. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the concept of white saviorism, because I don't think you can talk about whitewashing without talking about white saviorism. When I think of whitewashing, I think a lot about, I think of it in terms of history, because that's when I first discovered it. I went to North Carolina A&T for undergrad, and so when I got there, my mind was blown because I had realized up until then, the history I had learned in school and my perspective of just our society in general had been completely whitewashed. I felt like I had to just relearn everything that I knew. So that's why, Tabby or Charlie had me be at HBCU Con before on a panel, and that's why I feel like I'll always come back to be on a panel for HBCU Con, because I always say like my HBCU kind of saved me from being a crazy person. So yeah, that's my perspective of whitewashing. But I also have a lot of experience in athletics, and so that's what I think about in terms of the media. When we see whitewashing, we see that white saviorism. Yeah, we'll talk more about it, but it's prevalent in so many aspects of our lives.
Silverheart, did you want to go ahead?
Yes. So I took some notes because I have ADHD, so my brain always goes everywhere. So it helps me stay organized. So if I look over to the side, it's because I'm looking at my notes. But no, so for me, whitewashing entails a lot of different things. Some of the things you guys mentioned as well, like where you see a POC character either, get portrayed by a white actor and they're just white, their actor or the character is no longer a POC. So their source material isn't there anymore. So you see that happen. And then it's also, of course, it's the white savior that will happen as well, which is whitewashing. But also, I think you'll see it too, where in history, where they'll have like a movie or a TV show based on historic events, but they tell it from a white perspective. And then that person becomes like a white savior. And it kind of almost is like a good example would be like a lot of movies like Dances with Wolves. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's a good example of it, where you have an event where a minority character or minority group is treated very negatively, but we're supposed to look at this from a white person perspective who didn't do anything wrong and they were trying to help. And so it kind of shifts your point of focus or your perception of the historic event. So for me, that is an example of whitewashing. Is something that happens a lot more often than not in these historical figures or pieces, movies and films and such.
Yeah, definitely. And JJ, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, as far as whitewashing, you see it everywhere. And I know that we talk about the media, but it's everywhere. When you think about food, we're so whitewashed that Taco Bell is considered Mexican food. And we know for a fact that it's not. And we just accept it because culturally, that's just gotten that paintbrush of just this is what this is. But we also know this that when we look in our neighborhoods, like even if an area is up and coming, now it's gentrified. Like what once was ours and what we had our culture was now has a white paintbrush on it, and now it's beautiful and acceptable in the same areas that you would never step in before. Now have high rises, and it's pushing the people that live there out. And the worst part about it is like, but you should be happy. Look how beautiful it is. And so that's the big thing for me. And we even see it in the way that we think of photography and the way that we do anything. Because anytime our culture is actually influenced into anything we do, now it's edgy or it's urban or it's got that rough, gritty feel or it's got some sort of connotation to it. Or if we follow directly inside the borders, they're like, oh my goodness, we can't believe that somebody from your background can shoot something that's so pristine or so like clean or so whatever. So it's like it's so whitewashed that it no matter if we do inside the box or outside the box, it's either like accepted, not accepted, or looked at as urban. So it's like we have no choice but to be urban because why is the standard? So I know I kind of went on, but
no.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to point out is that HBC UConn is so different from a lot of the other conventions I've been to because it is focusing on spotlighting, Black people and the HBCU experience. And a lot of times when I do this whitewashing panel, I talk about a lot of examples like Gods of Egypt and movie examples. We all know Avatar Last Airbender, the live action version, completely whitewashed. We don't see our brown characters who we know and love anymore. And movies like the Death Note movie that was on Netflix, just completely whitewashed, Ghost in the Shell, those kind of examples. And I'm always talking about those because I'm at, anime conventions and comic cons and things like that. And it's awesome to get a new perspective on this whitewashing topic because now we're talking about real life examples that you see every day. So I just thought that was really awesome. But speaking about the news, like Sam said, or about entertainment and things like that. What effect does whitewashing have on the audience who's actually watching this? And Silverheart, you can go ahead.
Well, I think it has a big effect because a lot of us, especially in the blur community, a lot of us, we read these mangas, we read these comic books, we know the source material, we've read the book. So we already know these characters, these POC characters. We know them, we connected with them, we build a bond with them. And then when you go to see like, oh, this new trailer for, this new movie about this favorite character of mine whose POC is about to drop, this character I've connected with, because I don't see that representation. And then all of a sudden you see a trailer and there's a white actor portraying that character. That's very disheartening. It has a big effect on the audience. You start to feel like, wait, what happened? Why is this character is clearly, from Africa. Why are they why are they white? Like, what happened? Or this character had natural hair. Why all of a sudden they have a perm? Like, what happened? So it's very disheartening. I think it makes you kind of you lose your connection to that character when that happens.
And Sam, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. And JJ, what you were saying about gentrification and everything, it made me think about how whitewashing plays a role. Initially, I also wrote down some notes for this. And initially I was thinking a lot about what we take in, like what we're taught in terms of what we see in the media and what we learn in school, because that's usually where it impacted me the most. At least that's what I always automatically think about. But when JJ was talking, it made me think about, even seeing these different characters on the screen when we're only seeing these white characters, it influences our beliefs about ourselves and our autonomy, like our independence, our ability to do things on our own. And I think about how little Black girls are always taught, like, oh, you straighten your hair for special occasions, and things of that nature. And even like going back to what I was saying about in sports, you see movies like The Blind Side and movies like that, and it's like, oh, in order for you to be a successful Black athlete, you have to have somebody on your side. You have to have a older white, especially a man, mentor that gets you somewhere. You can't do it on your own. Your talent's not going to get you there. You know what I mean? It's not about the hard work, the effort you're putting in, your physical capabilities. It's more about the connections that you have, or it's always got to be something more. You have to meet the standards of the people above you. And in the NCAA, in professional athletics, it's always an old white man, So when you see this whitewashing, you pay less attention to what the people of color can do for themselves and how hard they're working, despite all of the things put against them. And you focus on, wow, like such a gracious white mentor. Someone is using their privilege for good. And in reality, like that's not usually the case. It just keeps this narrative of the people of color being lesser than and needing other people, and the white people involved in that narrative, them being center stage, and them out of the kindness of their heart, when in reality it's taking advantage of people who are vulnerable.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, JJ?
I actually want to piggyback off something Sammy said because she's right. So I feel like even in sports and even in movies and entertainment in general, I feel like to be black and to succeed, you have to meet a standard of like pain and trauma. Your story is more important than your merit. Like it doesn't matter if you're actually good at the thing. Is it marketable? Is it something? Like they either want you to have gone through so much dirt and trauma and trash to get to some sort of thing where they can be like, look what we built up. Look at this amazing, the rose that grew from the cracks. Or you have to be the other way. You have to have been so Ivy League Juilliarded out that you're such an outlying stand up, like almost like Olivia Pope. Like whitewashing is to the point when you watch a show like Scandal, to even be the president's side chick, you would have to be the best of the best of the best of the best of the best for that spot. Like it's so hard to even think that an actress or an actor, a black, a brown, a Spanish, whoever like actor, actress is going to school, they're working on their craft day and night, they're missing sleep, they probably have a full-time job just to end up being prostitute number two, thug number one, like and even if you are in a superhero movie or a Marvel movie, you're only going to be the henchman. You're going to be the like toss away cannon fodder person. You're not going to be the boss. You're not going to be the kingpin. They don't care about. It's not about being smarter or intelligent. It's the brute. There's a look. There's an image, and it sucks to think that you can get to the very pinnacle of your craft and just be glass ceiling because of the melanin in your skin. So whitewashing definitely it affects everybody, and it affects the next generation of kids coming up, the boys and the girls. Because I mean, it might deter you. We might lose the next great actor because they're like, why would I even put time in this if the only thing I'm going to be is a struggle character, or the only role they want me to know is pain, or like, as you can see, I'm very passionate about this subject. So I'm gonna end this here because I'm sure there's more questions.
I was going to say something about something Sammy said as well. You have brought up hair and talked about you straighten your hair for big events and things like that. I didn't even think about that for this panel, but that's such a big topic. You could run a whole panel off of hair alone, part one, two, three, four. But that's such a big deal, even with cosplay. I'm so happy that things like hashtag 28 Days of Black Cosplay and things like that exist these days. Because when I started cosplaying, even though that wasn't that long ago, it was so hard for me to just start because I didn't see myself in the characters. It was hard for me to even choose a character to cosplay. Everybody kept saying cosplay Storm, coincidentally, cosplay Storm, cosplay this person. Like people they already know are black, you know? And I just didn't see myself in all of those characters or in a lot of those characters, and I end up choosing Gamora because she's green, you know, and you don't have to worry about what you look like if they're green. And that's why a lot of us relate to these alien characters from these movies and things like that. We always say, oh, Piccolo is black and this person is black. Look, Panther, yeah. Like on Thundercats.
You're right.
Yeah, we used to say these certain characters are the black ones because we relate to certain characteristics they may have, and because we know ain't no black people on that show, you know, like there's nobody representing us. And so I just wanted to point that out as well. I'm glad that now I'm seeing a lot of cosplayers who are using, you know, natural hairstyles and things like that.
Actually, can I piggyback off one thing you said about
Yes,
that?
please do.
It's to the point. It's to the point that it cracks me up that everybody like, even with whitewashing, that they'll be like, you can't play that character. That character's not black. But you look at them, you're like, newsflash, the character's not white either. That character's fictional. They're and if at best they're Asian. At best they're Asian. Like it's like we're all doing the wrong thing. So you might as well jump on the boat. Why hate? Let's all just be how we want to be, do we want to do.
In addition to like all of those examples, are there other examples of how whitewashing can be negative in ways that are other than to an audience? And Silverheart, did you want to start?
Yes. So I would say, it could be harmful on a, cultural aspect as well. So again, a lot of these characters who get whitewashed are, indigenous people, or they come from certain areas, certain cultures. And then when you whitewash them, I think it can be very offensive, because again, who are you? If I am a part of a certain culture and I have certain, cultural norms, and I see this white character portraying that, I'm going to be offended. I'm going to be like, well, you don't know what that really means, and that's not for you. Like, I feel like the line gets very, very muddy when those kind of things happen. And so, again, a lot of examples would be things like The Last Samurai or Dances with Wolves, or even going back to Breakfast at Tiffany's. I don't know if anybody remember, what's his name? Mooney somebody or other. Like, you can't have a white person portray like a very racially insensitive like characters. I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's very let's say not politically correct the way he portrayed an Asian character. And so you see those things happening, which is why it's bad on that level as well.
And JJ, did you want to say anything?
Oh, I mean, it's dangerous because with whitewashing, other cultures don't even get to be normalized. Like, think about how we watch TV shows like Modern Family or just any one of those kind of situations like that. You're never going to see a Muslim person going through Ramadan and just having a slice of life moment, or just like other cultures celebrating their things in America, because we're all American. Like, we're here, so you're American. So you would think there would be more like just daily shows or even songs or just programming that isn't just making it so exclusive, but just like, oh no, we're all normal. Like, it's a Tuesday. I take out the trash just like you do, but also like maybe I have to face Mecca a couple times to pray a day. And that's normal. Like, that's nothing. And I think the fact that we have to find spaces to just be normal, like we're fighting like a literally civil fight. Like, we're not even fighting for equal at this point. We're like, can we be represented? Not even can we be represented well? Like I just think that every culture deserves to be able to see itself in a sense of normalcy that's not trauma, that's a sense of peace, that's growth, that's art, and then you get to express yourself. And I feel like when the best of everybody is being able to be displayed, and also the humanity of everybody is displayed, we'll just be better off. So I think it's real dangerous to just whitewash or take and pick and choose what you like from a culture, a dance from this culture, some clothes from this culture, some food from this culture. You know what I mean? And then just going about your merry way and never pay homage to where you got it from, because then it loses its meaning, because someone's going to get that from you and you won't know where it came from. So we're only 2 generations from that actual feeling and the meaning behind the thing being lost. And now it's just consumption. Think about it. They sell dream catchers at like the store or on like Etsy. And like, do you think Native Americans are making those? It's just trendy. And like once culture becomes a trend, whitewashing is definitely involved somewhere.
I'm gonna move on to the next question, which is, why do you guys think representation is so important? We kind of touched on this a little bit already, but Sammy, do you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's funny because Silverheart, when you were talking, you mentioned how people will try to portray a certain culture in the media, but it's not a person of that culture displaying that. And 9 times out of 10, it's completely wrong. Not only do you not know why somebody does that, or the context incorrect, it's not even portrayed in the right way. It's all wrong. And so with representation, that's so important, because you can display these different cultures and you can display them accurately, and you can get a perspective of someone who's actually lived in that culture, and it's just like, you don't have to worry about it's almost hard to explain, because to have someone who is not of that culture trying to display it, it just doesn't even make sense. It really doesn't, and it can be frustrating. But one big thing when it comes to representation, I'm glad that representation now is increasing. I definitely see a lot more Black and Asian representation in movies and TV and everything. But one thing is that representation has to be normalized further so that we don't only get one depiction of the culture. Because I think when we have white people displaying different cultures, that's how we end up with stereotypes because they do it wrong. And then also when you have representation, but you are picking and choosing what representation to show, that also is just feeding into stereotypes. And so like, as there's more Black representation, I've seen on social media a lot lately, people discussing how now the representation that we see is like only Black trauma. And it's not a wide variety of trauma, because, you know, you see a wide variety of white trauma in movies and TV, but it's only police brutality, something revolving around civil rights and race, and or like slavery or something. And it's exhausting because that's not, like, Black people are people. We have regular traumas. Yes, we may have racial trauma on top of that, but that's not all that we are. Our existence is not just in relation to white people, because that's where we get that racial trauma. That's not the only experience we have is with white people involved. So I think that that's why representation is so important, and we only like halfway give representation, and that can be frustrating.
Silverheart, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I was gonna piggyback off that because I agree wholeheartedly. Like when we do see the representation, it is sometimes like, oh, there's a trauma. You have to be going through something. I feel like it would mean a lot if we can just see a good old slice of life, like movie or show starring a Black actor, you know, a Black person. Or even with like, can we get a mystical show about like a Black elf, you know, going to save Middle Earth or something like that with like on a dragon or something like that. You know, we don't see ourselves in anything other than that Black trauma, or, you know, struggling through something or be going through something. Like it's always one of those situations that occur when we are able to be at the forefront. So I think the representation matters because we need more of that. We need more variety, if you will, you know, so that and again, we live this stuff. You know, sometimes we need an escape. I don't want to have to go to the movie to watch police brutality. We live it. We see this every day. Can we get an escape as well? Can we get something other than what we're facing every day?
And JJ?
Actually, to piggyback off what both of you guys said, for me, representation is so important because what I do see every day isn't just that. Can I get a show about Black entrepreneurs and millennials and people out here who are running 3 different types of side hustles and businesses while managing like what it means to work from home and like what it means to have to try and win your degrees or things that you worked really hard for because it's HBCU, God. And you have to try and apply that to a world that no longer exists in the way that, you know, whatever. Like there's so many other stories to be told that aren't trauma. And if they are trauma, it could be like new life trying to figure it out, trauma, like anything. And so I think it's just really good because representation matters because not only do white people have tech startups, guess what? Black people do it too. We make apps. You know what I mean? We design clothes. We're creative. Like the thing is, where are the Black creative stories that you hear that aren't like, oh, nobody believed in them. Their parents didn't want to support them. There was no gap year for them finding themselves. Or if it was like, oh, but finally they did this one thing and then everybody now loves you. You know, they say that they, what is it? They scream your failures and whisper your successes. Like, I think maybe we need to even out some of those. Like there's tons of Black people, brown people, just Asian people who are doing things every day that white people get movies about. Like Mark Zuckerberg got the Facebook movie, but like how many Black unsung people make apps every day that we use and do different things? That story would be nice to hear that, like, you know, or just like you said, a slice of life. There's just so much more to us that needs to be represented, not just childhood trauma and then straight to adult pain. Like we have in between. Can we go to prom? Can we pick? Can we pick out like regular things? You know what I mean? I just want to see somebody get their driver's license and then bump like some trap music on the way to their friend's house. Like that would be a normal story. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when doing this panel, when we're talking about representation, we always tend to bring up Black Panther. We always tend to bring up Black Panther because it was one of the few times when we had great representation, and there wasn't really anything to complain about. This was made by Black people. Black people came together to create a narrative and a story that we all could relate to. It did show different dynamics. Killmonger was a different story than T'Challa who was a different story than Nakia was. Like everybody had a very different story, and everybody had a story to tell. And I feel like also with Black Panther, they're also showing Black excellence, even in the case of like Killmonger, who has a lot to be upset about. It was like, well, this is the truth, and this is like a villain who we are all kind of agreeing with. There's no real wrong side to this coin. It's just showing that we are versatile, and some of us are struggling and going through um, these situations that were put on us, a struggle that was given to us that we didn't deserve. And it's telling that story, but it's also telling the story that we can overcome this and that we can band together and that we are all a people and just one big group, and we can all succeed together. And I think we all got that from Black Panther. I mean, everybody showed up and showed out when they went to see it.
We still out here.
Even that was showing so much unity just in a one movie, showing some representation. But what are some other examples of representation that you guys see that speak out to you? Sammy, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I felt like going to see Black Panther in the theater was like such an emotional experience for me because it's like a weird thing for Black people, and I'm sure other people of color probably have this experience as well, but it's like because you don't ever see yourself represented, you almost feel like, is it actually real, my perception of who I am and my own culture? So seeing that on the big screen was kind of like, whoa, it was extremely validating. But I had similar experiences, and I talked to some friends of mine who are Asian, and talking to them about like, I feel almost like this must be what like certain like white people who try to be allies to people of color. I'm like, is this what it feels like to be them? Because I saw like Crazy Rich Asians and like all of these Asian movies that are coming out, and I get to see a whole new perspective of their experiences, and it's blowing my mind because I've grown up with Asian friends, and like I know plenty of Asian people, but it's like in the media you only see whitewashed versions of the behind the scenes, and or you don't even get a behind the scenes of people of color in a lot of movies actually. But I'm like, now I feel like, let me check myself because I'm getting too excited to see what's going on here. And I don't want to do the same things that some people do to me when they're like, is this what it's like to be Black? And then they got to tell me like, shut up. But I felt even emotional seeing a lot of those movies in the theater because I'm like, finally I get to see the perspectives of other people of color, and they feel so much more genuine. And even like Always Be My Maybe, like that movie on Netflix, like it's been heartwarming for me to see other people of color getting their representation, because it does get frustrating when you see Black representation and it's like, these parts are great, these parts not so great, we're not quite there yet, but it was like refreshing to see like other cultures getting their moment to do things as well. So for me, those are big moments of representation.
Silverheart, do you have any?
Well, I have a whole list, but I'll keep it short. I would say, even so, I have two black brothers. They're adults and they cosplay every once in a while. And I've seen them change by seeing a lot of different representation. So my brother has been cosplaying probably since about 2015. And they've done like Spider-Man. They've done like a few things like Captain America, things of that nature. But when Into the Spider-Verse came out and they got to see Miles Morales, they were in love, and I was too. And I think it was a good example of, we have this black character who's in here. He's super smart. He's going to a good school. He's trying to keep his head on straight, and he's not like living some, the black trauma that we see a lot of times. It's not about him being in trauma. It's about him as a black person and him trying to find himself to get into his powers and then to get into all of those things. But that's not the main focus. It's him getting into some black trauma. But it was real in the sense of, you see, the family dynamics. You see like the connection they have with each other. So it was something you can really relate to. Not to mention that we see this black character with black hair. He doesn't have like a low cut, or he doesn't have like what I say. You see a lot of like animated characters who are black, but they have like white hair. You know what I mean? Like it looks like a Ken doll hair. Like there's no texture to that hair. Miles had texture, and I loved it. And so seeing my brothers get so inspired by movies like that, and be like, oh yeah, I want to cosplay not Spider-Man, Miles Morales. That's who we're cosplaying as. I love that. And I'll even take it all the way back to like even looking at Luke Cage, or even Black Lightning. Those are other characters where you have these black actors, these black heroes, and these black cosplayers or black men, black little boys. They can see it and be very inspired by it. Now, again, not all these shows aren't perfect, but still, it's better than what we had.
Facts. JJ, do you have an example?
Yeah, so for me, it's a little bit different. I want to say something because we've been talking about, Black Panther and all these movies and other things and Killmonger. I want to specifically say Michael B. Jordan because I grew up with him. Like, I remember when he had fuzzy braids on The Wire, and you know what I mean? And I saw him go through that trauma. And then I remember we grew up a little bit, and I felt like I was struggling to find out who I was and like who I fit into society. And then he was Oscar Grant in Fruitvale Station, and I felt that pain. And it really touched me because I was like, man, it could be anything. And he told that important side. But then on the other hand, he's on soap operas. I think he was on like The Young and the Restless. He's kind of just doing his own thing. But then he's in Fantastic Four. And then me, I love boxing. I grew up watching Rocky. Like, so I love the whole Apollo and Rocky thing. When Creed dropped, like that did it for me. And then to see a villain that was black and smart and thought out and wasn't just a pawn as Killmonger, like that did it for me. And then to see him as a lawyer helping out, is like that did it for me. So the thing is, I think representation and all this other stuff matters because to see one actor be so many different things, how about all those millions of black boys and girls who saw that one specific actor in one or actress in one specific role and was like, oh, he can do it. I can do it, or I like, and to just open up doors for actors and actresses to be like, hey, I can be versatile. Like I can have a resume that says, why can't I be the best friend that cracks jokes and drinks and parties and goes on vacation, is affluent, and then also do these other roles while I'm in pain. Like I can be a millionaire just like I can be a janitor. And so like I appreciate things like that. And that's why representation matters. That's why the Issa Raes of the world matter. When we get shows that's just chilling and we just working and we just trying to find it, those people matter. The Lakeith Stanfield, like all that stuff that I see where it's like, finally, like I just get to be. Like it's just to create a space. And I want that for every race. Like I want everybody to have that. I want everybody that's Asian, Indian, whatever you identify as, and we're not just like that, like trans, whatever, gay, like anything. Everybody from every spectrum should be able to turn on a TV at some point during the day and be like, I relate to that, and not feel like it's pandering or it's whitewashed or it's watered down or it's fake, or like anybody of anything of any age, no matter how old you are, should be able to see something and be like, I feel that. Like that's that, and that's not too much to ask for, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking the other day about Master of None on Netflix.
Oh, Aziz.
Because Aziz, He's always played the little funny whatever, whoever on shows like Parks and Rec and things like that. And who would have even known he
I
had
didn't know he had range like that.
that much range in him, because he's probably always typecasted.
Yeah.
And that show really spoke to so many different kinds of people. I felt like there was so much black culture in that show. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy that he was able to depict different races, different cultures, and be very authentic with it and very genuine. And so I appreciate shows like that. And it goes to show that you don't have to be black to give an authentic black experience to black viewers.
That's
and
true.
and that goes for every other race as well.
And while you were talking, that made me realize that whitewashing just kind of feels like somebody telling a story, but from only one character's perspective. That's like having the script of like Romeo and Juliet, but we only know what Tybalt said. And like we don't know the rest of the play. And so it's just like it's just like, and then we're at the end, like, how'd you get that from this? Like,
Right, exactly.
yeah, so
Now, we are getting close to the end of the panel, but I did want to make sure that I asked you guys, how can we prevent whitewashing? How can we encourage change? And Silverheart, do you want to start?
Yes, I think, those two questions kind of go hand in hand, because I think how we change it is by encouraging and, promoting more Black creators and content in these characters. And one way, which I love the cosplay community does, is we look and find these Black original, like, not actors, Black original, like, content, like Black original comic books or fan art, things of that nature. And then we'll cosplay it, and then we'll show it off to everybody and talk about it. And I think that right then and there kind of helps spread the message or spread that representation around. That's how you can use your platform to help encourage it. And also, it doesn't hurt to talk and share. When you find an original comic book and it's by a Black creator and it's a Black character, share that ish all up and over social media. Let the world know this is out here and we need to talk about it. So I think that just doing things like that really, really helps. I think the only way to prevent it or stop it from happening is I need these people, these big wigs, these CEOs, these people in Hollywood, whoever they are, I need them to really sit down and include Black people when they're creating things, when they're like, hey, we have this script, we want to make this movie. It has a Black character in it. Let's bring a Black person in and talk about, how we can do this, because I think there usually is not a Black person represented at the table where these meetings and these discussions happen, which is why we do see more of this whitewashing.
Sammy, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna think of this from a psychological, like sociological standpoint. But one of the big things that really frustrates me is in our society, which is more of a capitalist society, we think like, oh, I really like that, I need to make money off of it, which is really wild when you think about it. But I'm also a doula, so I've experienced in the birth world, and one thing that's a bit controversial in the birthing world are rebozos, and they're like these scarves that you can use during birth. They're Mexican scarves, like a wrap shawl kind of thing, and you can use them during birth to help the person be a little more comfortable and things like that. You don't need it, but you could have it, and it's cool to use. But the issue with that is like, there's a lot of white women who want to teach birth workers how to use them. They want to make them themselves and sell them, or buy them and sell them again, and things like that. And so regardless of whatever field you're in, we may learn these neat things from indigenous people or from different cultures. And then we're like, oh, more people need to know about it, so I need to sell it. I need to teach people. And it's like, when you do that, you're watering down somebody else's culture and you're profiting from it, and not the actual indigenous person or the person from that culture. And so we see that a lot in the Black community. We see that when people who are non-Black are wearing braids that are specific to Black culture. Most fashion, everyone wants their nails done a certain way now, and before, like, it was ghetto to do that, or they want their lips and their butt done, and and it's making people look better, but it's like, well, when that was a Black woman, you wanted to act like she wasn't pretty because of it, you know? So people always want to profit from it, or they like something and they want to become it. And it's like, no, you can appreciate something and not try to morph into it. You know what I mean? Or you can figure out a way to create more exposure for this concept you really like, but the person you got it from, who is of that culture, can still benefit financially from it, or what have you, because there's so many things that are culturally significant that someone won't be able to, or won't want to gain financially from it, or won't want a lot of other people outside of their culture trying to do the same thing, or take that idea. And so you just truly have to be more considerate of the people of that culture, and not think of it from a standpoint of, I need financial gain, I need popularity, I need attention. It's like, it's not about you. It's about the people of that culture.
Right. And JJ, did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, to piggyback kind of what Sammy said, you can appreciate a culture 100% in full without taking from it. Because that's kind of like what we do with nature. That's why they always say, like, try to leave the smallest footprint you can. You can go there and not ruin something and completely enjoy it. So I agree with that. But what I also want to say is that, like, it's just, we have to acknowledge that whitewashing exists. The only way that we can stop it is we have to say that it's a problem in the first place. Like, anytime you're true to yourself or you're true with yourself, that's when you make growth. The second you're like, man, I'm actually bad at, I don't know, weaving something, let me practice it or let me acknowledge it, then you get better at it. So I just need all of us to agree that it exists, and then we can work on the problem. And then also, we don't need white saviors. You don't need anybody's savior. You're your own. We live in a time where if you make music, you don't need a label. There's SoundCloud, you can make it yourself. You can distribute products yourself. You can do everything yourself. You're your own hero. You don't need a white savior. You don't need a black savior. You don't need, like, just, you can just do it. And don't let anybody deter you. Your skin is not anything to limit you. Your melanin isn't anything that you should feel bad about. It should be something that makes you proud and makes you feel happy. And you should be able to look at anybody that you see and make, that sort of connection. And, once we get rid of, like, whitewashing and everybody gets a chance to shine, it's going to be beautiful. Because, I mean, the more colors you add to anything, just makes it better.
All right, guys. Well, we have like a minute and a half left, so I wanted you guys to just let everybody know where they can find you, how they can find your social media and whatnot. Silverheart, would you like to start?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I think that's it. Oh, and YouTube at Silverheart Cosplay on all platforms.
Oh, you know what? And sorry, the timer was wrong, and we do have a little bit more time, but I am gonna go by tags first. I hate actually doing that at the end because then people are rushing to say where you find them. But Sammy, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, you can mostly find me on Instagram at Sam the Psyche, and that's spelled SamThepsyche, because psyche can get a little confusing. But on there, I usually post a lot of psych stuff, especially related to Black people, how you can find therapy, what different types of therapy are, and every once in a while, I do a live to discuss the information I put out there. So, yeah, that's where you can find me.
Wonderful. And JJ?
You can find me on Instagram at The Rise of J Jones, TheRiseJJones. And when you come to my page, you can find anything. It might be cosplay, it might be guitar, it might be a meme. You never know, but you'll feel good. I'm gonna try and keep your spirits up. And anybody come follow me. I'm all inclusive. I want everybody to feel welcome over here. Like, hey, if you're a good person, then we're gonna be good.
Right. And again, my name is Charlie Rocket. You can find me at Charlie Rocket Cosplay on Instagram, Facebook. I have YouTube. I have everything. You can check my link tree on Instagram. I think it's on Facebook as well. And explore the many, many pages of Charlie
Just
Rocket.
scrolling, scrolling, scrolling.
Also, very quick, I wanted to mention that yesterday was JJ's birthday, so happy birthday to him.
Oh,
But also I wanted to piggyback off of what you guys were talking about. One way I think that we can uh get rid of whitewashing. I always talk about supporting black artists, black writers, just like Silverheart was talking about. There's so many black comic writers. There's so many black voice actors, things like that. And we do need to support them, and we do need to, because we're about money in America, we do need to put our money into it. I think a lot of times, we talked about this earlier today, actually. We'll say things like, oh my gosh, I would love to have a character like this who was black, and then there's a black writer or a black artist who creates that character, and you say, oh, it looks like a knockoff of that guy. Well, if you wanted a black character who's like that, there they are. And you
exactly.
have to put your money into that stuff. You have to stop asking your friends for a discount. You really need to do something
Yeah,
to share this. And if you don't have the money to put into it, just like Silverheart said, you can share these people, like share their work, share their art. Make sure you tag people, because there's so many times where you're tagging the model and not the photographer, where you're sharing artwork that you love and not tagging the actual artist, maybe just tagging the page who posted it or something like that. Make sure you really do give credit to these people so that everybody knows, like, no, we're actually interested in this product. We actually want to see people of color on the screen. We want to see them creating art and making a difference. And so how can we encourage more black artists and black writers? Silverheart?
I would say, a big one, like I mentioned before, is like cosplaying some of those characters. So, like, there's this black artist I follow, I believe is RSJ Creation is their name, and they make their own like characters. They draw. I don't know. They don't think they make a comic book. They make their own characters and they draw them. And I love their characters. I'm always saving the pictures. And I actually reached out to them once and was like, "Hey, I would love to cosplay this character. Would you be okay with that?" And they were like, "Yes, that would be awesome. Like, yes, let me know. I can give you pictures of what their back looks like. If you have any questions about their armor, let me know." I'm like, "Great, good. I will let you know," because that, I think, in and of itself is how I can use my talent to help promote and help spread their material out, is by doing something like that. I mean, I can't say it's going to be good, but I'm going to try my best to represent very well for them.
That's awesome. Sammy, did you have any thoughts?
I mean, you guys mentioned a lot of things, a lot of the things that first came to my head, just kind of spreading the word, giving those people their, why can't I think of words? But like make exposure. That's the word I'm looking for. Giving those people the exposure they deserve. But also just like, I feel like it's always necessary to every once in a while kind of check your perspective of things, and making sure that you're giving the same energy to the creators of color that you're giving white creators. Because it's almost like, because everything's so whitewashed, we don't always at first realize white people's race. And then it's like, oh, we're allowing this person to have a blank slate rather than and then for people of color, it's like, oh well, the first thing I'm thinking of is this is a person of color. It's like, well, you don't have to assume anything about the art just because that person is a person of color. Go into it with an open mind the same way you would any other art that you come across. And then not just using social media or anything like that, when you have conversations about characters or about anything in the media or what have you, in places like this, when you have panels or when you're just having conversations with your friends, bringing up that artwork, sharing that with people on a personal level. That way people will probably, to a degree, they'll trust it more, like, oh, my friend recommended this to me. Maybe I specifically might like this, that kind of thing.
JJ?
Well, this is perfect. And I'm actually going to piggyback off something Sammy said, because the best way that I can think of to, spread the word and get the message out is if you know somebody and you know somebody doing something that you support or a movement you support, use your platforms. And right now I have a platform, and coming from Atlanta, like I lived there for a very long time, and I got to meet some people that actually got me into the scene, and I was actually able to meet Charlie through a lot of that stuff I was doing. And I want to give a big shout out to Punk Black, because they're actually an organization that does alternative, like Black people, but they're also coming up with this platform where they're trying to get writers, all sort of creatives that make anything from music to video. They're trying to do a network in Atlanta and everything, and they're just trying to galvanize and get everybody together, and not just in Atlanta, everywhere, and just to mobilize us all. And so the best way I can think of to help those people is to shout them out specifically. Like, I know people that are actually doing some things, and I want to encourage everybody that if you can give somebody a shout out, if they're selling clothes, if they're making art, if they're making candles, if they're selling therapy services, because not just goods. Sometimes we need to take care of ourselves, our mental health, anything that they do. If you know them, and like, money isn't everything. Sometimes it's word of mouth. You never know if the message that you give gets them to where they need to go, and vice versa. So if you know somebody who's a POC, a person of color, just trying to make it in the world, help them if you can. So Punk Black, I love y'all. Thank y'all for everything. So I got to show the love. HBCU UConn, same thing. So just want to broaden that net.
Another organization that's local to North Carolina is Color of Fandom. I know when I first started cosplaying, I came across Color of Fandom, and I met up with some of them, and that's how I learned about some of my favorite comic books, like Saga. Oh, love it. But also they were the first people I did this whitewashing panel with. They had asked me to be on the whitewashing panel alongside my friend Tracy and a couple other people, and we did that at one of the local cons. So Color of Fandom, there's other groups like that are local, where you're getting like-minded people together, and you're basically showing that, like, Black people can be so many different things. People of color can be so many different things. And now we're normalizing this. But while we have 2 minutes left, did you guys have any final thoughts? I'm kind of going to just open it up for the last 2 minutes. I know that personally, I forgot to mention, I mentioned this on almost every panel I have that's in regards to race, is the fact that a lot of these shows try to give us a little tiny bit of representation by following the Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide formula, which is one Black man and one white female. That's always what you need. You just be a white man as the main character and have one white female and one Black man. Who else has that? Captain America. He's got Black Widow, and he's got Falcon.
The Legend of Bagger Vance.
Legend of Bagger Vance. What? But did you guys have any other things that you guys wanted to say?
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
I'm just happy to be on this panel with you guys. Like, it's great to have like-minded individuals who just want to push us as a people forward, but not just us, everybody around us. It's always good to just want to see the uplifting of humanity as a whole. But I'm rooting for everybody Black. I'm just gonna say I'm here for everything Black. Let y'all know. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you guys for coming to our whitewashing panel. Adios.
Bye.
I think it's over.
Uh,